All right, let's dive into a topic that's, well, it's fascinating and maybe a little uncomfortable. We're going to look at some common everyday habits that, according to psychology, might just reveal a whole lot more about a person's intelligence or maybe their lack of self-awareness than we realize. I mean, you've been there, right? You're arguing with someone and they are 100% confident, but what they're saying makes 0% sense. It's so frustrating, you know? And you just can't help but wonder, what is actually going on inside their head? Well, here's the thing. Psychology says it's more than just that person being arrogant or stubborn. Turns out there could be something much deeper going on. These behaviors, they can actually be signs of some pretty specific cognitive patterns. So yeah, let's get into it. Okay, so our first stop is what I'm calling the confidence puzzle. And it's all about that really strange paradox, where someone is just so sure of themselves, but they don't have the skills or the knowledge to actually back it up. So sign number one is this loud, powerful overconfidence that's not based on any real understanding. And here's the truly fascinating part. It's their very lack of knowledge that makes it impossible for them to realize how much they don't know. It's a total catch-22. And yep, this whole thing actually has a name. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's a really famous cognitive bias. Basically, to even know that you're bad at something, you actually have to have some skill in it. If you don't have that baseline knowledge, you don't know what you don't know. You're just confidently and blissfully unaware. Now, this lack of self-awareness, it often leads right into our next big theme, really inflexible thinking patterns. This kind of mental rigidity, it's another huge red flag that psychologists look for when they're trying to understand how people think. And there are two main habits that kind of fall under this category. First, there's just no curiosity, no real desire to learn. And second, there's this habit of seeing the world in just black and white. So let's break both of those down. Okay, so let's talk about curiosity. Truly intelligent people are always asking why, right? They just want to know how things work. But on the flip side, someone with lower intelligence might actually avoid new ideas. Why? Because new information can feel like a threat to their ego, like a personal attack on what they already believe. And then you've got sign number 3, black and white thinking. For these folks, there's no gray area. There's no nuance. Everything is either 100% right or 100% wrong. And as you can imagine, that makes it almost impossible to grapple with complex problems or even just see someone else's point of view. Their world is just sorted into these simple good or bad boxes. And yeah, psychology has a term for this too. It's called cognitive rigidity. Think of it like a mental roadblock. It's this inability to be flexible, to change your mind when new information comes along. Their first opinion is just locked in, and that's it. All right, moving on. Let's talk about impulsive emotional reactions. And this is a huge piece of the puzzle because our brain power isn't just about logic. How we think is deeply connected to how we feel and manage those feelings. So here's sign number 4, poor emotional control. The research on this is pretty clear. There's a really strong link. Lower IQ often corresponds with lower emotional intelligence. And what that looks like in the real world is someone who really struggles to handle their impulses, things like sudden anger or frustration. I mean, just think about the difference. On one hand, you've got the impulsive reaction, getting offended easily, not being able to regulate anger, just acting without thinking. But on the other hand, you have the thoughtful response, pausing, thinking, and then responding calmly. That little pause, that's everything. That's where intelligence really kicks in. Okay, this next one is really interesting. Let's talk about what I'll call the logic-resistant mindset. This is all about what happens when someone's brain just actively fights against reason, against facts, and against any sense of accountability. And you see this mindset pop up in two main ways. First, constantly blaming other people for everything. And second, just completely being unable to handle an opinion that's different from their own. So sign number 5 is blaming others. This is so key. They really believe that life just happens to them. They're always blaming bad luck, other people, or society for all their problems. Instead of asking, okay, what can I do to fix this? Their first thought is always, who did this to me? It's like they give up all their personal power. And you guessed it, there's a psychological term for this. It's called having an external locus of control. It's just this core belief that your life is totally controlled by outside forces and that you can't really do anything to change it. And that belief, well, it leads straight to blaming everyone else. And that brings us to sign number 6,
They just can't handle opposing opinions. They confuse disagreement with disrespect. So if you challenge their idea, they take it personally, like you're attacking them. For them, a debate isn't about logic, it's a battle. Their beliefs are so wrapped up in who they are that challenging the idea feels like you're challenging their very existence. So all of these signs, the overconfidence, the rigid thinking, the emotional reactions, they all point to one final, really powerful idea. A sort of ultimate blind spot that ties this whole thing together. So, what's the scariest part about all of this? After everything we've talked about, what's the one thing that's really chilling? It's this idea right here. The lower your IQ, the less you see your own flaws. Think about that. The very thing that causes all these problems is also the thing that makes them completely blind to them. It's a perfect closed loop. There's no way out because they can't even see the door. And that really is the biggest takeaway here. Low intelligence isn't about getting bad grades or not knowing facts. It's about how a person thinks. Or more importantly, how they fail to think about their own thinking. It's about that ability to step back and say, wait, could I be wrong here? But I'll leave you with this one last thought. What does the fact that you wanted to learn all this say about you? The very fact that you are curious enough to sit here and think about these ideas? Well, if you ask me, that's a pretty clear sign that you're on the right track.